Hello everyone, I am here with a true short story. The story tonight is called Jesus in the Clouds, and it is by Darlene Stern. I was glad I wasn't there to see it when our 8-year-old son Jacob put his hand against the moving blade of a saw while he helped a neighbor cut firewood. I wouldn't want to see that either. My husband called me as the rescue squad rushed Jacob to our hospital. I was in a meeting, and before I headed to the hospital, the group lifted Jacob up to the Lord in prayer. Because the local hospital didn't have the resources to handle Jacob's injury, he was transferred to Children's Hospital, a larger hospital for younger patients. Jacob will require surgery tonight, a bone graft in the future, and extensive therapy for at least a year. He may recover only partial use of the hand, the ER physician told me. During the 40-minute ambulance ride to Children's Hospital, I told the Lord I was ready for a sign that his hand was in this situation. Almost immediately, an attendant asked the driver to decrease the heat in the back, as they were uncomfortably warm. They had already unsuccessfully tried to control the heat from the back. I chuckled, for I had my sign. I've been told heat without a detectable source can be a sign of God's presence. God is not only willing and able to respond to our requests, but frequently does inevitably more than we might ask inevitably more than we might ask or think. Ephesians 20. Right on the heels of that affirmation, the attendant returned to the front to radio ahead. As she signed off communications, instead of saying the standard clear, the attendant said cure. God had given me another sign. During the evaluation at Children's Hospital, an X-ray of Jacob's uninjured hand was ordered as a repair gauge. Miscommunications caused the technicians to X-ray the injured hand again. Thus, the surgeons had 2 sets of X-rays of Jacob's injury, one taken 2 hours earlier and these later ones. One surgeon remarked, "This does not look nearly as bad on our X-rays as on their X-rays." God had given a third sign that he was at work. I asked if the 90-member surgery team would let me pray with them before surgery. 6 consented. We asked the Lord to guide their hands. After 6 hours of surgery in the wee hours of the morning, the surgeons responded that in the area where the X-rays suggested all bones had been expelled by the saw blade, they had found a thin remaining sliver spanning the gap. As they were predicting, the future graft and extensive therapy Jacob's hand would require, God was speaking the understanding to my heart that he would rebuild the bone on the sliver that he had preserved. That evening, my husband David saw a vision of Jesus in the moon-framed clouds, with his arms outstretched as though he had everything under control. Jacob's recovery progressed rapidly. He never screamed, cried, or fought the caregiver's ministrations. He also required less pain medication. God sustained him. After a couple of days, the hospital began to ask how we would pay Jacob's rapidly mounting bills. We had no insurance. I prayed that the Lord took me to 2 Chronicles 25:9. The Lord is able to give you much more than this. I felt God was saying that he would take care of everything. 6 weeks later, we visited the hand clinic for a checkup. The doctor proposed a bone graft. When we asked if it was absolutely necessary, he said normal function would never be restored without a graft. His comment smacked my faith, a crushing blow, as I had believed God would restore the hand without further human intervention. That evening the Lord took me back to 2 Chronicles again, this time to chapter 32. As I read about Hezekiah and Jerusalem under siege by Sennacherib, I realized the enemy I struggled against was not the doctor and his prognosis, but doubt that God could not do what he said he would do. Once the situation was defined, my peace was restored. By this time, we had assurance that the homeowner's insurance company would cover Jacob's medical bills. We were relieved for another sign that God was still with us in this trial. We waited 6 weeks longer for a bone graft. What looked like needless delays was in fact engineered by the Lord to allow time for him to heal and restore the bone in Jacob's hands. Finally, June 20th was set for the bone graft. 5 days before that, we made another trip for x-rays. Even my untrained eye could discern more bone mass in the new x-rays. Our hope increased. When the resident surgeon viewed the x-rays, he suggested canceling the surgery. However, he had to defer to the experience of the senior surgeon. He said he would have the surgeon's secretary call us with the final decision. Our hope exploded. God's timing is not ours, but his timing is perfect, and he chooses to work so our faith can be increased. We waited for that phone call for days. Finally, 19 hours before the surgery, the senior surgeon's secretary called to cancel the operation because, according to the surgeon, there's a better bone growing than I could have built. God had faithfully provided another sign. By the August visit for x-rays and consolation, the surgeon's report had become, "It's really amazing. You can't even see the fracture line on the x-rays anymore." By that time, Jacob was pounding nails and milking goats. God's signs and wonders had continued. The Lord answered our prayers in better ways than we could have imagined. All along the way, he provided signs that Jacob's hand was in his most capable hands. Amen.